Good day and welcome. Today I'm going to talk about The Man Who Never Missed. It's published in 1985 by Steve Perry, not the lead singer of Journey, and I apologize if you're like, who's Journey? Who's Steve Perry? Anyway, Steve Perry is the author, and I've only read 8 of the 10 books in this series, but every one of those books starts with Death Came for Him or Her, and then where it came from. The first book starts off Death Came for Him behind the trees. Um, the initial 3 books are the story of a martial arts school that overthrows an empire. It's not really science fiction because it is set in the future and it does feature interstellar travel, but the interstellar travel itself isn't particularly relevant to the story. You could set this story on a single world, like Earth, and really there wouldn't be anything that it wouldn't materially change the story. Um, that being said, it is a fun book to read. The initial book, The Man Who Never Missed, is the story of Emil Antun Kadaji, who is a former soldier who participated in war crimes, had a revelation, was touched by the hand of God, and based on that decided that he needed to overthrow the empire that was responsible for these war crimes, and he then spent the rest of his life doing that. um, he studies martial arts, meets a teacher who teaches him martial arts and various of the spiritual functions of martial arts, and then he goes about overthrowing the empire. The first book mostly deals with Um, it starts off where he's engaged in guerrilla warfare against the Confederation, gets caught, and then locks himself away to try and prevent his capture. And while he does, meditates for a while. And then that tells the whole story of how he got there in kind of flashback form as he's meditating. It's actually, I think it's a really well done storytelling device. Uh, which you kind of have the sense of, well, he's going to make it through all these things that are happening to him, but still it's interesting to see the events as they unfold. The author is a fairly accomplished martial artist, and so the martial arts descriptions and the philosophy behind it are uh, really well done. Actually, I have um, one other thing that I really enjoy about it is normally when you read books set in the future, they talk about past events up until the book is written, and then there's a giant gap. So if you have a book set 2,000 years in the future, they'll talk about, oh, well, in the 1980s they did this, in the 70s and the 60s, and then nothing else in the 90s. No, nothing happened in the 90s. Nothing happened in the whole decade of 2000 up until 3097 when we're telling our new story. Steve Perry actually goes through the trouble of developing enough of a history that he can point to historical events that happened after the book was written, but before the timeline of the book. And it's very rare to see people do that. So I really appreciated that it did that. It gives you more of a sense of history to the story. Um, and then one minor nitpick I have is one of the characters, Bork, is described as, a little bit short of 2 meters tall and 125 kilograms. Or if you prefer English units, he's 6'6" and 275 pounds. And he's described as, some kind of, he's from a heavy world, so he has what I'll call mutant strength. And he's described physically as this very imposing person that's covered with muscles, etc., etc. And I'm going to be honest, that's one of those things that really bothered me. I'm about myself 193 centimeters, and right now I'm in the area of 125 kilograms. And when I first read the book in the late 80s, I was also about 125 kilograms. And I'm like, I'm a big person, don't get me wrong. And if people notice me and they recognize, people tend to recognize me, even if I haven't been somewhere a lot, because I am not small. But I'm not to the point where I don't think I've ever seen anyone gape at me. because oh my gosh, look at this huge guy, and I'm roughly the same size as Saval Bork. When from a strongman, when you look at that, Eben Etzebeth, for example, is South African rugby player. He's 6'8" and 117 kilograms, or 2 meters 4 centimeters, 117 kilos. So 6'8", 250-ish pounds, and he's big. Don't get me wrong, but he's not someone that you would just gape at. If you're looking at that, people that are that big, you're talking like Brian Shaw or Hafthor, who are 150 to 200 kilograms and 2 meters and change each. Those are the kinds of people that are going to get that reaction. So it just kind of bothered me that Bork is supposed to be this huge guy, but when you describe his actual height and weight, I think it's not that big. But minor nitpick. But every time I read the book, it bugs me. But anyway, is it a good book? Yeah, great book, great fun to read. There's philosophy in there, martial arts philosophy and political philosophy. Kadaji is trying to overthrow an empire from the inside, as a member of the empire. So there's he's very in tune with the politics and how to impact the politics. He's also been touched by the hand of God, which gives him a certain level of inspiration. And his story is a really fun, compelling story to read. One of the things that people talk about in The Man Who Never Missed is that it's got early evidence of LGBTQ representation. And I'm going to be honest, when I read it, I never really thought of it that way. Most of the characters are indifferent to the gender of their partner. Kadaji himself is intimate with men and women. Darisha, Geneva, yeah, pretty much all of them don't care. They're not going to turn anyone down as a partner on the basis of their gender. So, I mean, technically speaking, they are not heterosexual, obviously, but I never really saw them as being LGBTQ, but they are. So anyway, either way, it's a fun book. It is politically progressive for the 80s. So you might the more modern reader might find it entertaining. Either way, appreciate your time and listening this far, and I will talk to you again later.